So welcome to the Global Network webinars. My name is Alexander Loschke, and I will be moderating this webinar today together with my colleagues Yushi Sang and Sean Lovell. We are happy to have with us today Reena Shah from the UN Statistics Division and Vlad Trusca from the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Our colleagues will present on the new global set of climate change statistics and indicators. So following a mandate of the UN Statistical Commission, a global set of climate change statistics and indicators is being developed in close cooperation between UNSD, so the UN Statistics Division, UNFCCC, so the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and the expert group on environment statistics. The draft global set was distributed for a global consultation between May and September of this year and was discussed at the 8th meeting of the expert group in October. The expert group recommended that the final global set be submitted to the upcoming 53rd session of the Statistical Commission in March 2022 for adoption. So during our Global Network webinar today, you will hear about the background of the global set, its foundation and methodology, about recent and planned actions of UNSD, and about collaborations between UNSD and UNFCCC to strengthen the link between statistics and policy. Let me now tell you a bit more about our speakers. So Reena is the chief of the Environment Statistics section at UNSD and is responsible for environment statistics methodology and data dissemination, capacity development at regional and national levels, and the development of the global set of climate change statistics and indicators. Vlad is the team lead in the Transparency Division of UNFCCC, and he is responsible for the development and implementation of systems and tools for monitoring, reporting, and verification of transparency-related information and data under the Climate Convention, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Agreement. Before joining UNFCCC in 2009, Vlad was the head of the Climate Change Division at the Ministry of Environment in Romania. So before I hand over, just 2 or 3 practical things. So as always, we will first hear the presentations of our speakers, and then we will have a Q&A session at the end. Please feel free to write comments and questions into the meeting chat at any time. And then during the Q&A, you can please ask the question yourself. So this would be preferred by us. We will then allow you to unmute yourself. Or if you wish, we can also ask the question for you. Yeah, just let us know. As always, this Global Network webinar is being recorded and will be made available on the Global Network of Data Officers and Statisticians at yammer.com/UNstats. We invite you to continue the discussions on the Global Network after the webinar. So enough words from me. Over to you now, Reena. The floor is yours.
Yes, so first I'd like to say thank you to Alex, Sean, and Yushi for having invited myself and Vlad to give this presentation today. How we're going to do it is Vlad will first present the policy side, and then I'll speak more about the history and the current status of the global set. And Vlad will also share in presenting some of the results of the global consultation that was just conducted. And just to mention also my colleagues, Emil Ivanov, Marcus Newberry, Xuan Shea, and Robin Carrington from our section in UNSD have been very much closely involved in developing this global set. So I think I'll pass it on to Vlad first and then continue.
Thank you so much, Reena and Alex and the team in UNSD for inviting us to speak. You can hear me well, right? Yeah, okay, good. Let me share the presentation prepared for today. I hope you can see it now. I hope you can see it.
Looks good. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. So, yeah, indeed, I forgot to say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for different audience around the globe. Again, thank you so much for inviting us. We are working together with UNSD for some time now, and we are just seeing the fruits of our cooperation every day now, more and more with the global set. I will start a bit with introducing who we are and what we do, because I'm not sure if the audience know a lot about the Climate Secretariat. So again, we are UN Secretariat. We are in charge of the climate aspects, negotiation, support, and other activities like data and so on. We are dealing with the Climate Convention, the Kyoto Protocol, its Doha Amendment, and recently also with the Paris Agreement. We usually have our annual conferences of the parties for the convention or the Kyoto Protocol or the Paris Agreement. The recent one that was in Glasgow, I will say some words about it towards the end of the presentation. But again, you can see some important quotes from the Secretary General during our COP meetings in 2018 and 19. What we do, as mentioned, we are involved in all the aspects that are related to climate change, from adaptation, resilience, impacts, vulnerability, going through finance, technology, mitigation, and even science. And actually, the place where I'm working on, my division deals with the transparency, which means reporting, review, multilateral consideration of the reporting, things related to the inventories of greenhouse gas emissions, national reports coming from parties to the convention and the Paris Agreement, but also something that you might have heard about, the nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement, and again, looking also from all sides, from negotiation side, technical support to countries, but also the analysis of information and data. A bit of background on the Paris Agreement, what it is and how it functions. First of all, what it is, we have the long-term temperature goal, the idea of the resilience and low emission development for countries, but also very important, the financial flows for developing countries to be able to work on both sides, the adaptation and the mitigation side. At the same time, the support for adaptation and mitigation also turns the form of the means of implementation, looking on finance, looking on technology development and transfer, and also capacity building. In terms of the accountability, we have these three pillars that are part of the Paris Agreement: the transparency of action and support, and I will speak more about this in the coming slides. The global stocktake, which is a periodically ambition mechanism and assessment, and the facilitation of the implementation and promoting compliance. Looking at the ambition for parties, again, we have in the center of the work on climate, the long-term temperature goal, the resilience, the financial flows, part of the development, and we have this again three-step approach with the planning, which basically means the nationally determined contributions that are provided by each party of the Paris Agreement, the adaptation communication and their communication on finance, which again move to the implementation phase, where there are activities for mitigation of climate change, adaptation, and support and means of implementation, which concludes with the review part, where we speak about this enhanced transparency framework, compliance, and global stocktake. Looking at the enhanced transparency framework and its link with the NDCs and the global stocktake, you see again the first step that starts with the parties, the countries that are communicating their nationally determined contributions, and which are followed by their submission of the biennial transparency reports, which, as their name, they will come every 2 years, showing how the parties are tracking the progress in terms of their emissions, their greenhouse gas emissions, their progress towards implementing their nationally determined contributions, their impact, the work on the impacts and adaptation, but also the support that the countries are either providing and mobilized for helping the other parties, or the ones that are getting the support, showing the support that they need and the one that have been received. The step 3 of this process that will start under the Paris Agreement is the review of this information and the multilateral consideration of this information. It ends with the global stocktake, which is every 5 years, and this is showing to the world the state of the climate process, the climate activities that were implemented by parties. This is not something new. So the Paris Agreement didn't come up out of nowhere. The process started in 1992 with the Climate Convention. It was followed through with the Kyoto Protocol to the Convention, which had different implementation decisions that were coming in the year after. And another part of this process was the Paris Agreement, which was also followed in 2018 by the Katowice rulebook, set of decisions to implement the Paris Agreement, which was also finalized now in Glasgow at COP26. We have all the rulebook for the implementation of the Paris Agreement agreed. In the bottom part of the slide, you can also see how this process was also followed with the reporting and review of information that was presented by parties in terms of their national reports on implementing the convention, providing their greenhouse gas emission inventories, and all this information being reviewed over time. So what is happening now with the Paris Agreement is just a continuation of this process in a maybe more enhanced way, and applying this process at the same level or the same way to all the countries. Of course, with the flexibility for developing countries that need this in terms of reporting. Now, again, looking at this enhanced transparency framework, it is important to consider these 3 parts, these 3 steps for it. The reporting part, where we have, as mentioned before, the greenhouse gas inventories. We have all this now under the umbrella of the biennial transparency reports that will start coming to the Secretariat from the parties in 2024 or even before, in which the parties will need to provide this information, the information that will need to be reviewed by expert teams that are made up of experts from all the countries in the world. And there is this quite comprehensive review process in which different aspects are looked upon, like the consistency of the information, the improvements, the capacity building needs, and so on. This whole process finalizes with the consideration by all the parties in terms of the way the reporting and review was done. And there are online question and answers that are sent to parties, but also during our negotiation sessions, there are presentation by parties and question and answers. And this will also happen under the Paris Agreement. In terms of the benefits, because again, I'm moving slightly from the policy side and what is happening at the international level to the links with the statistics. So it is important to see the benefits of the transparency of information, both at the national side, where we talk about the political acceptance of the climate aspects, the idea that the policymakers are informed to be able to plan better the activities on related to adaptation or mitigation. There is a better access to support that is needed for developing countries. I was talking the other day with UNSD about this important role of having this information available. It is one thing for a country to provide all this data about their adaptation needs, their financial needs, their support that they need, and to provide this information to the donors. Then just to say we need financial support. It's important to have indicators. It's important to have good data for the activities that the countries need to implement. We talk again about capacity building. We talk about awareness. All these things are important at the national level to make sure that we increase the activities for the climate actions for parties. At the same time, we look at the international level. It is important because we look at the building of trust. As long as the request for funding and support are linked with providing the data, providing good data, improved data from one year to another, you gain trust with the other countries internationally, showing what countries are doing for climate mitigation or adaptation. Countries are also being able to show that they are meeting their obligations. You have these nationally determined contributions that the parties took, and there is a way with this transparency framework to show that you are meeting your obligations. But at the same time, there is the increase of ambition, the support for going further, going every time more than it was presented before. And you've seen countries now, probably you've heard about countries going to their zero net emissions in 2050 or 2060 or even before. This needs to be provided with data. So all in all, you see the benefits of transparency that are coming both nationally and internationally. Now moving with the institutional arrangements, and this is where the statistical world has a very important role to play. This is where we look at the institutional arrangements that are needed in the countries. The transparency framework under the Paris Agreement doesn't prescribe a specific institutional setup. It's up to the countries to decide what works best for them. In some countries, it simply works by the cooperation between institutions, and everything works fine without any legal agreements or memorandum of understanding. Whereas in other countries, this strong instruments are needed to ensure that the information flows from the statistical offices to the Ministry of Environment or from other agencies to the institution that is in charge of reporting climate change information. At the same time, it is an opportunity also for the NSOs to get involved into this. And you will see in the presentation coming from Reena that we have asked NSOs about their involvement with the climate process and with the climate institutions. So you will see in the next presentation what they have responded. Now, I won't stay long on this, but it is important to build a sustainable process, a sustainable arrangements in the countries to make sure that the institutions that are cooperating for this domestic arrangements, that they identify and report the support, that they prepare the submission of the inventories, that they are tracking progress of the NDC, and also assessing impact, vulnerability, adaptation. So this domestic arrangement, it doesn't work only for the inventories of greenhouse gas emissions or for the adaptation. It needs to provide the whole spectrum of aspects related to climate change. Now, looking a little bit, as I promised, on what happened in Glasgow, at least for the transparency part, because there were many things related to the climate process. Again, in this conference of the parties, this one was number 26 that we had in Glasgow, we talk from oceans to forests, and from energy to transports, and from policy to science, and so on. So there are a multitude of aspects that are discussed under the climate process. Now, focusing only on the transparency, the last part of the operationalization of the Paris Agreement was to adopt this reporting tables and tabular formats that the parties have to use internally to report back to the Secretariat in a comprehensive format of all the information that is needed under the Paris Agreement. And this was achieved in Glasgow. The parties managed to adopt this decision. If you are interested to look for it, you can just look for the COP26 and for the decision on transparency. And this decision consists of all these reporting tables, tabular formats, the outlines for the documents, and also the training program for experts that are needed for reviews. So this was adopted by parties in Glasgow, and now we can fully implement the Paris Agreement in terms of the transparency. As mentioned before, the first biennial transparency reports under the Paris Agreement, they are due by the end of 2024. Some countries, they might want to submit even earlier than that. But the timing was very important for us to adopt these tables in Glasgow, because we needed also parties, but also the Secretariat. We needed sufficient time to be able to finalize these preparations to implement the tools. Now, to conclude, I just wanted to tell you a little bit on our cooperation with UNSD and what we have done in the past 3, 4, 5 years in this work that we are doing. We worked a lot now with UNSD, and we have participated in the events that each of our agencies are organizing, and we are even providing joint reports to the Statistical Commission. The next one is coming soon. We received an important mandate from the 49th session of the Statistical Commission to work together to promote this collaboration between at the international level, but more than that, to promote the collaboration between national statistical offices and the national authorities responsible for climate change reporting to UNFCCC, usually Ministry of Environment or environment agencies. A big chunk of our work is represented by the global set of climate change statistics and indicators that Reena will speak more about. And again, we have a lot of joint events like this one, in which we invite each other to participate, to raise the voice for both sides, for the statistical world and also for the climate change world, because it is important for these two worlds to work with each other and to collaborate. Thank you so much. I know I took a bit more time than allocated, but feel free to ask any questions. Thank you so much.
Yes. Reena, now over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm just sharing my screen. Okay. So Vlad, thank you for the introduction to this part, because I think it flows very well. So I know we don't have too much time, so I will be sort of touching on the most important parts. This is the outline, which you will see more details on each of the slides. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the background for those of you who are not familiar with the work on climate change statistics. This gives a picture of UNSD's work since 2008, in fact, where there was a Statistical Commission discussion based on a review paper on this topic prepared by the Australian Bureau of Statistics in the 40th session of the Commission in 2009. In 2008, we actually organized a couple of conferences, one in Oslo and Seoul, on climate change and official statistics. So due to the political nature of climate change around 2009, at the Statistical Commission, there was really not much discussion because it was highly political, as I said. So the work at global level was put on hold temporarily. And then the Economic Commission for Europe started working on this topic. I think it was around 2014, and we have been involved in that. And they developed a set of indicators, and UNSD piloted this set around 2017, 2018. And after we had received a mandate from the Statistical Commission in 2016 to develop this global set. So the results of this pilot testing that we did of the ECE set demonstrated that new or additional indicators were needed from the ECE set to reflect the needs of the developing countries, and in particular, some of the small island states, or issues about sea level rise, etc. So even in the current global set today, there are several examples of indicators that go beyond the scope of the ECE set, as I mentioned, sea level rise, but also issues relating to coastal areas, isolated areas, about municipal waste, indigenous people. It's much longer and I would say broader. And we are currently, as you can see, in 2020, we did a pilot survey and then a global consultation this year, which I will speak much more to, and we are planning to submit the global set to the Statistical Commission next year. Just again, a little bit on the mandate. So this is in the 47th session. Basically, the decision of the Commission was for countries to use the Framework for the Development of Environment Statistics, the FDES, to guide the development of climate change statistics and indicators, given the close interrelationship between these topics, and for UNSD to review and consider the ECE set of climate change related statistics as a basis for developing the global set. In 2018, at the 49th session, UNFCCC joined UNSD and ECE in the report of the Secretary General, And for the main outcome, I would say, and Vlad already mentioned it, is for UNSD and UNFCCC to really work on strengthening the link between statistics and policy. And I think Vlad already gave some examples of what we have been doing. In 2021, because of the pandemic, we didn't have a discussion paper, but we had an information paper. And again, if anyone is more interested in these details, you can access all these reports through the links provided. Vlad already talked about our collaboration, so I'm not going to repeat it, only to stress the last 3 points, I think, where we have been working more recently with UNFCCC, the online information sessions for the global consultation, in which we very much appreciate also the extensive support provided from the regional commissions for the various regions. We had different sessions. Then also we participated in, well, CGE is the consultative group of experts that supports UNFCCC, and they organized 3 regional webinars called Embedding Climate Reporting in National Statistics. And again, the regional commissions were very much involved in this, so it's very good collaboration here. And most recently, UNSD participated in a side event at COP26 in Glasgow about the involvement of NSOs in the transparency arrangement. So it's the first time, I would say, that we've entered the kind of climate, policy space. So that's very exciting for us. So now turning to the global set itself, I'd like to mention that given that there was really no underlying framework linking the reporting requirements stemming from the Paris Agreement and the needed statistics or indicators to support action, we have been working very closely with UNFCCC to develop such a framework. And this global set is structured according to the 5 areas of the IPCC, which are drivers, impacts, vulnerability, mitigation, and adaptation, and the framework for the development of environment statistics. And then we've added relevant articles of the Paris Agreement and other recent decisions, as well as the related SDG indicators and framework indicators as well, to strengthen the link between statistics and policy. So the global set, it started some time ago, the work on it, and we used a bottom-up approach. So we reviewed indicators and statistics being prepared or worked on or reported on from over 130 countries, and looked at what was the most commonly repeated ones to kind of siphon through and come up with a sort of representative list for all countries to be able to use. We had meetings of our expert group on environment statistics that discussed a lot over the length of time of the drafting of the global set, bilateral consultation with special agencies, and then we had a very extensive pilot survey last year. The global set will provide a comprehensive statistical framework with the indicators, statistics, and metadata designed to support countries in preparing, and I stress here, their own sets of climate change statistics and indicators. And this will be according to their own concerns, priorities, and resources. And the global set will also, as Vlad said, support the reporting requirements of countries under the ETF and the global stocktake of the Paris Agreement, as well as Goal 13 of the SDGs. And for countries that may have not have started working on climate change statistics, it helps to provide the scope and coverage as to what may be considered climate change. And it is flexible enough with a tiering system similar to the SDGs, so that it can be applied based on countries, regions, priorities, and data availability. And what we do recommend is to promote complementarity among global, regional, and national sets of indicators. For example, with the ECE set, with the CARICOM set, we know ESQA has also developed a set of indicators, and then also with specialized sets. For example, OECD, through the IPEC initiative, has also or is developing a set of indicators, and also the IMF has a dashboard on indicators, so maybe they have a specialized focus or a more select grouping of countries, but there is space for everyone to work together, and I think the minimum is to just reference each other's work and try to complement each other's output. Now turn to the global consultation itself. So it consisted of two parts. One was the institutional dimension, that one we sent to countries, and that I will speak to a little bit in the results. For the agencies, we try to ask them about data collection, methodological development, and capacity development. And I'm not going to speak about the results here, but they will be summarized in the background report to the Statistical Commission. So I don't have slides on that here. Then we had part two, which is the draft global set itself, consisting of the 134 indicators, and that was and the statistics underlying them, as well as the metadata, which was about over 300 pages to try to explain the different indicators. So in blue at the bottom, you'll just see the countries and agencies that responded to the global consultation, and we have 86 countries that had submitted part 1 and or part 2, and 25 agencies that submitted also. I wanted to quickly show you the, just give me a second, I'll try to do that. Sorry, I have to just switch quickly. So this was the draft global set that we actually sent out for consultation, just to give you a picture in case you've not seen it. So it consists of the 5 areas. In column A, you'll see one of them is drivers. Then we have topics, for example, to total greenhouse gas emissions. And then we have the indicators below that, and then the statistics that are needed to compile the indicators. And we did this on purpose because we know that, for example, in the SDG indicators, sometimes we know that they require an extensive amount of statistics to produce a single indicator. So we wanted to show transparency as well as what is actually needed to produce the indicator. Then we also have tiers. These were what we sent out to countries. And then we ask countries to indicate the relevance, the methodological soundness, and the data availability, as well as providing us with references and links. Because sometimes we note that countries may say data available, but until you kind of press and say, okay, where, please show us where they are available publicly, then we find that it is definitely the case. So this is not the final set. This is the draft that was sent out, and in the final set, you will also see the links to the relevant policy frameworks, as I said before, the SDGs, the Sendai framework, and the Paris Agreement, etc. Oh, sorry, I'm not doing this properly. Give me 1 second. I'm back. Okay, so just gives you a little picture of what we were asking. Okay, so I will now talk a little bit about the global responses only, as I said, to part 1, and this is really from the countries. So in the interest of time, I'm not going to present all the slides. I've hidden quite a lot, so if anyone is interested, you'll see them in the presentation, but I won't speak to them, and Vlad will present some of these. So we asked a question about the national policies or strategies related to climate change in the country, and as you can see, a majority, that 67 countries, said that they do have one, which is a very good sign. Then we asked about whether there is a department or unit responsible for climate change in the NSO. This is where we're trying to now push a little bit to understand the situation. And about 48 said that they have one, and it varies like where it is actually located. But what is interesting now, just to note that even environmental statistics doesn't always have a separate unit. So this is quite good to know that climate change is also being recognized now, and sometimes forming, part of a combined environment and climate change statistics unit, which is also very progressive. And this is the case, I think, in Cameroon and Ireland, and there was one more country that we also learned about where they've combined these two, which is very good. Then we also asked about the status of the climate change statistics unit or division or whatever it's called in the NSO. And again, you can see that it's usually about 70% with environment statistics unit or division. So now I'll ask Vlad to present the next few slides. So Vlad, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Reena. As part of the part one of the questions, we were happy that we could introduce some of these questions to NSOs, like if the NSO is involved in the preparation of the greenhouse gas inventory of the party, and how this works in terms of the cooperation. So as you can see that more than half of the parties mentioned, the NSOs mentioned that they provide data, that they work with the compilers of the greenhouse gas inventory, especially because based on the IPCC guidelines that we work with in the climate space. This is a requirement to get the official statistics, to get the official information to be used for calculating and estimating the greenhouse gas emissions. Where NSOs said that they don't work, some of the reasons that they mentioned was that they are not directly involved, or maybe the question was not specifically understood in terms of the way the NSOs are collaborating. Some NSOs, they don't see the fact that they provide the data to the greenhouse gas inventory compiler as a collaboration. In many countries, this is happening already, like the NSOs are involved because they provide the data, but their involvement stops there. So they don't go more into the detail in terms of how this data was sourced, what is the relevance of the data, and so on. So this is why we had this kind of responses from NSOs. Next slide. I think, yeah, this one, the one will be, this was more or less looking into the future. Like, do you know about the Paris Agreement? Do you know about the possible involvement? And we saw something that for us was something that looks that we need to work more on both sides, from our side here to make sure that we speak with the agencies and the national focal points under the UNFCCC to ensure that they speak at the domestic level with the NSOs, but also from the NSO side to be open for this kind of collaboration. Next slide, please. Looking at the requests that the NSOs received, because we thought about this situation where the climate change information that is needed to prepare the greenhouse gas inventory is quite heavy. So the institution that is mandated in the country to provide the reports to UNFCCC is probably quite demanding in terms of the data needed. And usually this goes to the NSOs. And this is something that it happens. And here it happens in many countries. And here we don't speak necessarily about developed and developing countries. It happens in both countries, developed and developing. There are quite a number of information and data that is needed from the NSO that is not available. What we were looking here was exactly this, like what is something that you were asked about, like what is the sector, what is the activity that you were asked about, and you were not able to meet the demands. And maybe it was a surprise. I think at least for me, it was a surprise to see waste as the most important one. I was probably expecting more on the transports or energy or even industry, but it looks like waste was something that many NSOs raised as a sector where they could not provide the respective information. Next slide, please. Here there's more to discuss. You see that we have received a lot of responses, especially related with the adaptation related information. So here we looked more from the emission side, we looked on the adaptation information, and adaptation information is even more scarce than the emissions in many countries, in many developed countries also. So we were looking to understand if the NSOs were involved in the preparation of national reports or adaptation communications and so on. And you can see in the slide the responses that we have received. Next slide, please.
Okay, I'll take this one, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, we also asked about climate change surveys, and traditionally environmental or now climate change questions may be included in existing surveys such as living condition surveys or others like that. But what we're noticing now, there are some NSOs, for example, Bangladesh and Nepal, that have conducted specialized climate change impact surveys. So you'll see 56 countries said no, but I mean, it's starting to happen. So that's a very good sign as well. And then we also know that Tanzania is planning to include climate change related questions in their 2022 census. And this is truly an achievement if that is going to be the case, and hopefully other countries will start going in that direction. And just for you to know that we have on our website a repository of such surveys for environment and now climate change as well. So if any country has such information, they can share it with us for others to also look at. This question was about whether climate change statistics are produced, or disseminated. And you can see here several countries have reported what they're doing. And with regard to sort of NSOs publishing specific or climate change statistic reports, the ones that we knew about originally were from Jamaica, which I think is the first NSO in the world to do this, and then Tanzania last year produced one. And there is a growing number now of NSOs and regional institutions that are producing climate change statistic reports. So here we only talked about the countries, but we also know that the Economic and Social Commission for Western Asia produced a regional publication in 2017, and the CARICOM, the Caribbean Community Secretariat, produced a regional publication of climate change statistics last year. And my colleague Marcus Newbury just texted me and said that Statistics New Zealand and the Ministry of Environment has just produced a joint report on climate change. I haven't personally looked at it, so I don't know the details. But again, we are encouraging countries and to share with us such publications so we can make them available on our website for everyone to refer to. So this one back to Vlad, please, the next three.
Yeah, so again, this section was also something that we asked UNSD to include in part one that went to NSOs. It's the idea of collaboration, and again, the response was quite positive for us. It looks like there is a lot of cooperation. Of course, it's also for us to do more. It's clear that we need to work more on both sides to make this 100%. So it needs to happen in all the countries. And again, the degree and nature of this collaboration varies. And this is a normal thing. And this is something that was envisaged, as I mentioned, in the Paris Agreement. There is no one model fits all. In some countries, the collaboration is very simple. Of course, it needs to increase because it's important to have more information about the data that you provide to the Ministry of Environment or to the agency that is in charge of reporting. or in charge of preparing the greenhouse gas inventory. But again, in some countries, they moved this to another level. There are countries, at least 2, if not more, where the NSO is in charge of estimating the greenhouse gas emissions, is in charge of reporting to UNFCCC. So again, there are different ways to do it, and different possibilities to organize this work internally. Now, looking at the what is really happening, we know that in many countries there is a committee or an institutional working group or task force that is in place to coordinate this work on climate change, because, as I mentioned, climate change is about everything, and you need a kind of a institutional collaboration at the domestic level to be able to have at the same table, I don't know, agriculture ministry, energy, transports, and so on. So we asked exactly this to the NSOs, and if there is something like this in their country, and if this includes also the climate change statistics, and you can see the responses that we have received. Next slide. I think there is one more. Yeah, we also looked for NSOs to tell us, to see also from that side, what are the barriers, what represents the barriers among the institutions that they see in producing the climate change statistics. In the interest of time, I don't think that we should go on with them, but again, you can see them on the slide. Thank you so much, Reena.
Thank you, Vlad. Okay, so we skip a couple of the sections, I think, because of time, but this is the next one. This was on capacity development. And we asked what are the main vehicles that the countries require or need assistance. And you can see primarily it's methodological guidance, workshops, visits, and bilateral work. And a lot of this we can do actually online, which has been one of the benefits, I would say, during the pandemic. Let's have a couple more slides. Alex, so just so you know. We also asked what are the most important needs, and you could see again in the collection of the data, how to report on the data, the development of climate change surveys, which I talked about earlier, resources, of course, and workshops. So we talked a lot about part 1, and that was the institutional aspect, but part 2 was the actual set itself. I mean, we received 86 responses from countries, and it's too much to talk about all of that. We did present all this at the expert group, but I think overall, I would just give a little summary. Maybe that's the most efficient way. So countries recognize the importance of the set, of the global set, its relevance to their own systems. And also we found a couple of countries, quickly I could mention New Zealand, that actually hired a consulting firm to conduct this consultation at national level, and they are working on their own framework as a result of this. The UK coincidentally was working on a framework on climate change statistics. That's the NSO, and or ONS as it is called in England, in the UK, I'm sorry. And they kind of drew a parallel to what is happening in the global set and made all the interrelationships and talked about that. So countries have really embraced this, even though it was a draft, and they've done all kind of innovative things with it. So we're very pleased to see this. We received invaluable inputs from the countries about the relevance, methodological soundness, and data availability for the indicators and statistics. And based on all these results, the indicators and statistics are remaining in the list, demonstrating its overall robustness. We have added some, actually, I don't know exactly how many, but maybe 10 to 15 new ones based on the results, as well as discussions at the expert group meeting that was held in October, because some of the countries and agencies had proposed some new ones and modified some. But generally, I would say it was quite robust, and the new ones completely are valid, and we're very happy to have it so that it can be seen as a more complete and comprehensive set. And the last slide is what we're planning to do. So actually today, I believe it is, we're submitting the Secretary General report on climate change statistics to the Statistical Commission. I mean, it's going internally first. That will only contain the sort of background and the list of indicators itself. We are going to have two background reports. One will be the indicators, the underlying statistics, as well as the links to all the relevant policy frameworks, as I mentioned before, as well as the metadata for the indicators. And then we'll have a second background report, which will be the summary and analysis of what we've just presented. That's part one from the countries, as well as from the agencies, which we did not speak too much. That will be also summarized as a background report. Then we also plan to continue working with UNFCCC to strengthen the relationship between the NSOs and the national climate change reporting authorities. And these are some of the examples in terms of providing support to countries online or eventually physically, developing training materials, implementation guidelines, etc., and doing joint activities. And one thing I didn't put on the slide, we're also planning to develop, some of you may be familiar with the Environment Statistics Self-Assessment tool. So we're planning to develop one for climate change statistics for countries to make self-assessments once the global set is adopted. And as Vlad said, that information via an assessment can be very helpful to leverage funding to help to, for example, to fill data gaps. And you can do this by doing such assessments. Okay, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Reena. Thanks, Vlad, for the presentation and the very thorough information that you presented. In the interest of time, because we are already slightly over time, but we also started a little bit late due to some technical issues. So let me try to maybe take 3 or 4 questions. Sorry, everybody, we will probably go like 5 minutes over time, but let me try to ask those questions. And I would like to ask Vlad and Reena, please be very concise and short with your answers. So we had 2 questions which were in relationship to the SDG indicators and the VNR, so the voluntary national review. So there was one question, how these indicators, this global set, align with the SDG 13 indicators regarding climate change and the reporting under the voluntary national reviews. And there was another question which said, so the availability of data is one of the key issues identified in the voluntary and national reviews. So capacity building and support to NSOs for generating and collecting data are crucial. The person was wondering whether there is any financial and technical support at the country level. So maybe we can take those 2 together.
Vlad, go ahead.
Reena, go ahead. I have just one item to mention about the capacity building and support, but you can explain first about the SDG indicators and so on, how this was taken.
Sure. Yeah, very briefly. Yes, we have included all the SDG goal 13 indicators in the global set. Because of time, we couldn't show them all. So we are trying to align, in that regard. But goal 13, as probably you know, doesn't have too much information, and it's a lot of it is yes/no answers. So it's not that quantitative in that in that regard. With regard to the support, I'll let Vlad speak, of course, but on our side, yes, we will continue to provide whatever we can to countries to help leverage, funding as well, because we have a lot of partners, banks and development partners that we are aware of. And once we see what countries' needs are, I think it's easier to match to the potential donors. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Reena. And also from our side, in terms of the support, we have currently in our division a program which is a quite important supplementary project that we are supporting countries by providing consultancy and experts that are going for 1 week in the respective country to look over the way the countries are using the IPCC guidelines, the way they are organizing their estimation of the greenhouse gas emissions. And we have asked internally my colleagues that are organizing these events in the countries to involve the NSOs, so that all the time there is a discussion with experts, with consultants that is happening in the country. Somebody from the NSO is always invited to participate in this event. And similarly, every time we have together with UNSD joint events, we try to make sure that at the same table we have representatives from the NSO and also from the climate change authority or the institution that is in charge of climate change. So at least they can speak with each other and have the possibility to enhance collaboration. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this answers already one of the questions which also showed up in the registration form by somebody. So you already answered that. So we have one more question, and which was, so what are the key challenges to produce these indicators in developing countries, specifically? So is this set something that all countries can do, or is it challenging for developing countries?
Maybe I can speak on that one. Yes. No, the idea of having a longer list is one of the reasons we wanted to address all countries, so that countries can find their place in it. So there are various types of indicators. Some are more sophisticated, some are simpler, and we have a tiering system. So through the three tiers, countries should be able to pick what is possible for them. But yes, the challenges are, I think I already presented some of them. It's often same things: coordination, lack of resources, methodological work. So I think what we are pleased to see is the progress already being made and the interest from the countries to have so many undertake this global consultation, which we sent it, I forgot to mention, we sent it to the National Statistical Office, but we asked them to coordinate with the focal point to the UNFCCC. And I believe most of them did that and added, other agencies within the country to work together. So I think it's a beginning of, way forward, a very positive step. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Reena. Just to add one more item. This is a living document. This is something that is not set in stone. Of course, we will look at what feedback we receive. We will look at the indicators. Some of them will be, as Reena said, used by many. Some of them probably not by many countries. It will be good to have a critical number of indicators that are used by many, so that we can look over time, because that's something that it will be useful. I always said that when developing this global set, we need to make it useful. We need to make it that it's not a burden for the NSOs or for the parties. We need to make it useful, and useful means that we can look in the next 3 years from the first reporting, and we say, oh, we have this set of 30, 40, 50 indicators that we can follow over the years, and we see that there is a change. Maybe the change is positive, and it's a good thing. Maybe we need to do something because we can see in the progression of time that things are not as we expected. So it is important to look on this, and it's also something that we see here in the UNF Secretariat. There is a difference compared to 15 years ago or 10 years ago in terms of the information that we receive, in terms of the quality of the information. Of course, there is an increase, an enhancement of the greenhouse gas inventories and the reports that we get from developed and also developing countries over time. And this is going to happen. That was the whole idea that was also embedded in the Paris Agreement. The increase over time of the quality and the submission and the timing of the submission and so on. So that's, I think it's a idea of the living set of the indicators. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have to wrap up. So I would like to just mention two more things. So first of all, of course, the recording and the presentations will be shared on the global network of data officers and statisticians. So please have a look there later there. So we will share both there. This could also be a place where you, Reena, or your colleagues could share some of the documents that you have mentioned, which will go to the Statistical Commission in March next year. And then I would like to thank you, and please, I would like to ask all participants to unmute themselves right now. This is the time where you can do it. And please give a big round of applause to Reena and Vlad for the great presentation. Thank you. Thank you so much for, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Reena. Thank you, UNSD. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, and thanks everybody for joining. So this was the last Global Network webinar before our break at the end of the year, and we will resume with 2 Global Network webinars in January. Thank you so much. Have a great holiday season. Bye-bye.
Thank you, you too. Bye.